Meeting you where you are. The meaning behind the slogan is that we meet the community where they are, on their journey towards holistic health, a plant-based lifestyle, and veganism, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. We do this through people, food, events, and culture. Our 6 pillars are earth, eating, education, empowerment, enlightenment, and events. We are Black Veg Society.
We are live. Thank you for tuning in. Let me help you, a loved one or friend, find your vegan soul through food, people, events, and culture. It's Mother's Day, May, and it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, May. And I am so blessed and grateful to bring my sister vegan on today. So let us feel the breeze with Dr. Breeze Harper. How are you this morning?
I'm doing really well. Hey, thanks for inviting me to be on your podcast or your live show. So thank you.
Oh no, it's a blessing for me, and it's definitely an honor because it's been 16 years since I've had this book, and you have many after that, trust me. But you know, this was the Bible right here for Sistah Vegans, and I want you to tell us, what was it like during that time after you published this book and you went around and spoke about it? Tell us who you are, what you do, and what it was like.
Yeah, well, oh my God, there was first 20 years ago was the Sistah Vegan project, and then the book came a few years later and was published in 2010. So for me, it was great to create this space to have these Black women's voices, the space that had never been before, at least in the literary sense. At the time, all the books about veganism and animal rights that were popular and being published, they were by mostly white authors, and the authors didn't really think about how being racialized and gendered and a racial caste system that is the United States would impact their vegan and animal rights practices. So here comes my book, which basically has these voices unapologetically showing that, yeah, Black women are not a monolith, but we are going to be impacted by systemic racism and sexism. And it will shape how we navigate, our dietary practices, our lifestyle practices, especially if we are vegan or animal rights activists. What that was like for me was that I had a lot of people really supporting the idea, but I also had the normal backlash from the racial status quo whenever one who it looks like me and identifies as a Black woman proposes that we're not in some post-racial era, and that I wanted to pursue or interrogate what would a vegan practice look like amongst Black women in the United States who are still dealing with the reality of racism and sexism. So there are some people who are mostly white who did not appreciate my scholarly interrogations around gender and race. And there were a lot of people who really did support that. There are a lot of people, mostly brown and Black women, who said that they were very, very excited to finally have this literary piece of work reflect some of their own stories, and representation being really important. So that book allowed me to do a lot of keynote talks throughout North America to talk about the significance of Sistah Vegan, not just as this book that's talking about veganism, but how we can use veganism as a platform to really understand racial power dynamics in the United States, systemically, how it does impact our access to food and food choices. And that was just a phenomenal experience and still continues to be over the last 16 years. And I love how I will often receive emails from people saying just how much the book has impacted their life, mostly from people who are Black or brown. And I love receiving messages from people who say, hey, because I read Sistah Vegan, I decided I'm going to go into my nutrition program and I'm going to focus on plant-based wellness and focus on, a fusion of food and racial justice for my own community, because, we live in food apartheid. There is nutritional racism. So that's just really, really wonderful. And then this past weekend in San Francisco, we actually celebrated 15-year anniversary, which was technically last year. This is year 16, but we celebrated that at the African American Center at the San Francisco Main Library. And a young person came and told me that it was really impactful for her. And she's a generation younger than me. It was just lovely to hear that it's still doing that work, and that she's going into her nutrition program, understanding that she doesn't have to just go the path that is like the kind of the clinical path, that she can also do, nutritional justice and justice around just getting her community to be healthier, her Black community to be healthier through a plant-based diet. So that was just lovely to hear.
Dr. Breeze, I can tell you, when I was first navigating in this space, and it was by way of introduction to my husband, Gregory Brown, in the Land of Kush, Black vegan restaurant celebrating 15 years as of January. When I went to, I think it was a festival in DC Veg Fest, and a sister there, my aunt, Sincere, she wrote an essay in this book too. I was like, okay, there's something for us, because when I thought vegan was all compassion, all everybody friendly, or I could not have believed to this day that there was sexism and racism and colorism and all these isms in the movement, that I said, okay, what is going on? Like, what am I really involved with? But, reading this, it was too hard, because, I found my tribe through this. What has it been like today? Because you wrote a compelling post, a very eye-catching post in January. I did some screenshots on it, but I'm not going to show those today. I didn't get uploaded, but you made some serious statements. And I want to talk about that, because I feel you. What is going on right now in this movement with women, Black vegan? What is happening right now?
Okay. So to understand what's happening now, let's go back 6 years, when 2020 had, unfortunately, the murder of George Floyd. And there was this kind of reactive performance, I'd say, from a majority of organizations and companies who made their commitments. We're going to do DEI, especially anti-racism. We're going to integrate it into our workplace. We're going to integrate it into the way we do things externally, whether it's the way we're selling products, the way we're sourcing. And from 2020 to 2022, I'd say, there was a lot of emphasis on hiring or working with Black and brown people within the animal rights and vegan movement to do this work with mainstream organizations and companies that were focused on veganism and animal rights, and that were largely white-led, and things that they had not really been thinking about before, right, that they were suddenly on board with. And a lot of us became kind of their Black unicorns. And I learned that it was mostly cosmetic. And then things shifted. I'd say toward the end of 2022 till now, there was a shift of rescinding those commitments, making excuses on why they can't support an anti-racism framing, why they can't do DEI beyond the cosmetic. And I think a big part of that is that I think historically, if we look at the way activism operates and how systemic changes are made, is that there's these three waves when it comes to, at least when I'm looking at Black liberation and equity. We're basically in this what Dr. Reverend William Barber III says, that we're in the third Reconstruction era. And what that means is after there's been, an awesome advances for Black and other marginalized individuals, there's always the backlash. So we had Obama as president twice, right? He won, and it really felt like there were being gains met. And historically, that was like a type of third Reconstruction. And then if you understand the US history, the past two Reconstructions were met with intensely violent backlash from the mainstream, racial status quo mainstream. So what I felt was going on with the vegan movement, the mainstream vegan movement was not going to be untouched from that. So what I witnessed was also what felt like a backlash from this third Reconstruction, where you had Black and brown women like myself doing this amazing work, helping organizations focus on animal rights and veganism to become more anti-racist, to really understand racial equity and how to put it into their practices internally in the workplace, and then also when they're dealing with services and products externally. And I can talk about some of the experiences I've had with clients that I won't name, where they were on board and then they come back and the political environment has changed and they're like, yeah, it's too risky. We're just not going to do this. Or our donors or our board have expressed concern that, we just need to just focus on animals. And we don't have the bandwidth, or we don't have the resources to really focus on DEI or anti-racism or, whatever. So I experienced a lot of that, but that made sense because I wasn't just experiencing that within veganism or animal rights. If you look at the broader scene of how the political situation is going, it would make that response made sense because everyone of the mainstream was doing that. They were rescinding, they were taking away their commitments, they were making excuses and going back to being neutral and just focusing on being less risky. And focusing on the bottom line, but you can't do that in a vacuum. We all know that. And what they're actually doing is holding up their investments and their possessive investments in neoliberal whiteness / capitalism, and that's kind of the wave that we see. So so I'm experiencing this backlash. I have so many colleagues, veganism and animal rights as a profession, but even beyond that, Black women who've lost their jobs, right? Or they've lost the funding, or something has happened where they can no longer do the work that they were doing because of the current federal administration. Even though not everyone works for the federal government, a lot of funding for nonprofits, a lot of contracts that companies have are tied to that, right? So a lot of us are finding ourselves having gone from the Black unicorns of, around 2020 to 2022 to now being, no, we can't have you around. We don't want to have you around. You're too much. It's too risky. What you bring to the table, obviously, is trying to dismantle the current status quo, and that's not safe for us as an organization, where our money, our wealth, and our power is connected to maintaining that very fabric that was America was built on. What we call USA now, starting 500 years ago. Hopefully that answers your question.
Right, exactly. And we've experienced some of that stuff here at Black Veg Society. So I definitely understand where you're coming from when you're saying that. I mean, there's been good times and there's been bad times. Sometimes when I'm speaking in women's space and I'm this face of a Black woman, BIPOC woman, I say, we birthed this nation on the breasts, on our breast milk, and we fed, people's children's, but we're the most disrespected in the country. And I'm in the world, forget just the country. We're talking about around the world. We're disrespected. And I don't get it, and as a spiritual being, because this is how I describe myself. And you said it a week ago in your talk, we're spiritual beings living this human experience. How do we navigate through this? How are you navigating through all? What do you suggest? Because I'm ready to just give up on the nonprofit and then do something. What do you suggest for us women to do?
Yeah, I mean, I have basically realized that DEI is just not going to be my thing to make change. Maybe it did or did not do what it needed to do at the time when I was doing it. But I've really been focusing on, and I live in the East Bay area, so it's easy for me in California to have access to Black communities that are actually doing the radical work that I don't find in mainstream. So what I've been doing is focusing more on community care work, building futures that are not dystopic, but building futures that are regenerative, that actually can have a path that isn't just extractive capitalism all the time. So for example, and I'm doing just like the care work, making sure that I find a coalition building and collaborations with those that I'd consider part of maybe the Black radical tradition, those who may be Afrofuturists. So for example, let's see, the other weekend I went to Afrofuturist Summit in Oakland, and there were tons of mostly brown, Black, Indigenous people, mostly Black, talking about how we can remember what our ancestors and present day elders have already done to create joy, to go beyond just surviving but thriving. So having those memories, being reminded of these as roadmaps. So for instance, I went to a workshop to kind of learn the importance or the significance of Black women quilters, like from back hundreds of years ago to the present, and how they were able to, first of all, they were in crappy conditions, right? Because they're enslaved, but they were not given blankets, right? We're cold. Not only are we building the agricultural economy and the wealth of white America, hey, we're cold and we need blankets. And many of the people the slave masters were like, no, we're not going to even give you blankets. So women decided to get like scraps of different materials and literally quilt blankets to keep people warm, but also take materials of certain things that were significant that can be part of story. So we were just in this workshop where we kind of learning about what it means to gather, to quilt, to create our own ecosystems of joy, in spite of what we're told is this is just the only way things are and will always be. So just thinking of these stories and looking at these images of Black women who are quilting before they realized that there would be this future where they would actually be no longer enslaved, but making that part of this world building has been something that I've been really just like attaching to and finding communities with. So like that particular experience, I had attended Data for Black Lives. They're doing really good work, looking at AI, but not artificial intelligence, but ancestral intelligence. And I was with about 300 people the other year in Miami, and same thing. Trump had just won. We were like, oh my gosh, this is an ideal time for all of us to gather and just really talking about data, like story as data, oral history as data, ritual as data. And that's kind of the type of advice I would probably give is now more than ever, is the importance of continuing to create joy amongst community of Black folk and allies, but mostly Black folk that remember those stories and are actually still using those stories as their praxis for joy and liberation. So that's what our focus is. And this past weekend when I had done the Sistah Vegan celebration at the San Francisco Library, I talked to a Black woman, Reverend, who's also, they said what they've been doing the last year or two is just focusing on joy, like joy as a technology, right? Ruha Benjamin's work has been really phenomenal. If, she had proposed, if all this dystopic crap can go viral, why can't justice and imagination go viral either? Why can't we do that? So that's what I'm really working on in community. Doing it in isolation is very difficult. But just showing up in community with others who are doing similarly, it's a beautiful reminder that we're more than just, I don't like the word resilience or we can just survive. Like we know how to thrive and create joy in a way, literally, that has been a roadmap for a lot of the mainstream that they won't even acknowledge that a lot of what we have done as Black women have created a lot of joy and possibility for larger society in the United States. If you read the book, The Conjuring of America, which just came out by Lindsay Stewart, another testament and reminder of how much Black women and girls have contributed, but were basically kind of erased, but really contributing to like creating so much of what the United States kind of just takes for granted in terms of food and healing, herbalism, nutrition. A lot of that was stolen from us. So if you read that book, oh my goodness, Vicks Vapor Rubs.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, that was taken from the child of a white slave master who had Black midwives and nannies and always looked at them going out to the forest and doing herbalism and taking care of both the enslaved master's children, the slave master's children, and the granny midwives would take care of, everyone. So this little white boy looked at everything this woman was doing and then decided, hey, I'm just going to patent this and call it Vicks Vapor Rub. So he didn't invent it. It didn't come from but that's something. This book notes one of many things that these Black women, even in the worst conditions, were able to create, these systems of healing and nourishing and adapt. And then and it shows how, white corporate entities like that take it and erase us, don't give us what we deserve, and just take it as their own and make profit off of it.
And it's still going on, and it's and I don't see an end to it, to be honest with you, because as long as we're living in this capitalist society, the society of who's popular, or I'm going to take and not give. I don't see any of that changing. So as women, as Black women, they trying to bury all of us, but they forgot we were seeds, and we'll continue to grow and commune and do these things that you're expressing. I see a lot of that in Baltimore, where I'm at. Just women building together. We have beautiful sisters doing amazing work to bring community together, despite trauma and things that they may have experienced or are continuing to experience. And you give good advice that we just need to keep doing that, and not being silent. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't do this alone. But a lot of us are silent and going through these things alone. And that's why this was a great time to bring you on. Is it to celebrate this month of May? Because it's not just about Mother's Day, it's about mental health as well.
Yeah. And that's,
you want to talk about that?
Yeah. And I won't name any particular names because of privacy, but in the past month, I have had 3 different Black women friends reach out to me that they are having severe mental health crises, but they feel isolated and alone. One telling me that not many people know, but she's bipolar, and that she had entered a psychosis and needed to go to a day program, but just feeling really isolated, and that she also had just left and is still fleeing domestic violence, kind of in hiding. So a lot going on, but she was just sharing her story. She's middle-aged, growing up as a Black immigrant from the West Indies, who were now living, in the United States, moved as a child, and talking about how her family just never talked about mental health, didn't understand that she was actually, depressed and needed intervention earlier in life. I had another colleague who had contacted me and said that they were having major depression as well. She's also neurodivergent and wasn't getting the support that she needed, and ended up having a panic attack so badly that she crashed her car the other week. And what I kept on hearing in these themes, and she's fine, she doesn't have a car anymore, but that she said she reached out to family. Family was not able to understand what she was going through, or were in denial, that she's having a mental health crisis. And I hear this a lot, that there's Black women in my life who are not getting the support they need when they're clearly having a mental health crises. And it's not necessarily, it's just happening now, but it had been leading up years or months, of things happening without them having the support they needed, or the language they needed to articulate that. So I'm just here to talk about that now, that a lot of times, at least when I was growing up, therapy is for white people and only white people need therapy. And it's absolutely not true. Like, we live in such a violent culture. Like, capitalism is violent. I don't know how anyone, regardless of their race or gender identity, could possibly be mentally healthy in such a violent environment. It's just not possible. And I think when it's overlaid with, when you're multiply marginalized, it's just more and more compacted and compounded, right? And then a lot of us who are multiply marginalized, we don't have access to what we need, not just to be mentally healthy enough, but healthy in so many other aspects, right? So here we are with, and my anecdotal story is an experience. Are these Black women that have been talking to me over the last few months who just don't have the support that they need, that they don't realize that they are going through mental health crises. The family isn't supporting them, or they don't have access to what they need because we live in a system where the healthcare is horrible. So, when you're not employed, it can be difficult to just get what you need. And then when you finally get what you need, there aren't enough culturally appropriate therapists to understand, hey, I've been racialized and gendered as a Black woman or girl in this country that is violent toward us systemically for the past 500 years. I need you to help me with the issues I'm going through at work, in my personal life, what's happening politically. It's been really hard for a majority of Black women to really find someone that understands that and that maybe takes their health insurance or has a sliding scale of fee. So that's basically what I am experiencing right now. And I'm trying to, I'm not a clinician, but I'm trying to figure out how to build a coalition or something, or more support to help, our Black sisters that are going through this, because it's just completely unnecessary. It's unacceptable. And it's just really hard to hear so much suffering and pain that could be mitigated and that these women could be supported.
I agree with you on that regard, because it's a lot when things come my way. So because sisters need to talk, and they're going to reach out to someone that they feel they can talk and share their feelings with, someone who will listen and not judge and make some recommendations. And it can be emotionally tolling on the individual that's receiving that as well. So it goes both ways. We can talk another hour or so or more about this. But I want to talk to you about, what do you need right now? Because I reached out to you, when I saw that post. How can myself, Black Vet Society, any of the affiliates that I have in my network, how can we best support you, connect with you, and any upcoming events you want to share? I think if building the coalition is one thing, we can bring that to, the tribe and talk about that. What else do you need?
Yeah. Well, I've really pivoted in the last 3 years of my life. I've pretty much not abandoned, but not put the traditional animal rights and vegan movement in the forefront of my professional life anymore. And just for my own mental health, emotional well-being, have basically gone away from that and this concept of DEI. And I've entered more of a space of co-building this Afrofuturistic practice that I have through the literary arts.
Can you define that for people that don't know about Afrofuturism?
It basically means that it's defining and co-creating a future that centers Black joy, Black thriving, and Black regenerative ways of being by understanding what our ancestors have done in the past that has not been necessarily not just pre-colonial era, but even colonial era and post-colonial era. So, I'm specifically focusing a lot on what's now called Nigeria and Ghana. What were the ways that community was built? What did reciprocity look like? What did healing and health look like? That wasn't within this colonial extractive context. And can we use that also moving forward as an alternative to capitalism, as an alternative to individualism? But also then looking back at the ways that my most recent ancestors, how they survived and what they did during the era of enslavement and Jim Crow, just learning things, something like quilt, how can we take the practice of quilting and together, and how can we apply that moving forward, building this community as an alternative to racial caste. So Afrofuturism is something that you would find in the movie Black Panther, I think is best known for that, but also by works by authors like Octavia Butler, where she's got one of her most famous books is Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents. So I've been really just totally inspired by her work, where she's all about, you have to understand history, understand that history often repeats itself, that the only thing constant is change and being able to adapt, but in collaboration with a community that understands what it means to have thriving, to be, to be enjoy, to be regenerative. So that's basically what I mean by Afrofuturism, but you're centering that on Black lives, Black folk. So that's what I mean. And then I'm doing that and exploring that through the literary arts. So I'm also a writer, a novelist. So the type of support I need right now is continuing to build with others as I write these books, as I give talks about these 3 new novels that are coming out. It's not just about the novels, but the novels are kind of a platform for me to then ask questions, have prompts, and be like, in this section of the book, when I read this fantasy, how does this apply to your communities and maybe the food insecurity that you're going through, the food apartheid that exists? How can this scene in this book and what this fictional, fantastical tribe is doing connect to what you're doing? So that one of my books is called Seeds of Sankofa. And if you go to my website, you'll see it's coming out next year. So it's looking at like Black ecological futures through an Afrofuturist lens. Then we've got, so Seeds of Sankofa. And then my other book is, and all my protagonists are Black and vegan. So another book I'm writing, or I just finished, is called Potato Chips and Wine, and that's for Gen X. It's a queer it's a queer love story that takes place in the 1990s on purpose. The protagonist is a Black 17-year-old named Pearl who lives in the middle of rural white New England. She's a closeted lesbian. She's trying to be vegan, and she's guided by the spirit of Audre Lorde and her writing. And I use that to basically talk about a particular era in the United States of what it was like to hear things like "don't ask, don't tell," in an era in which she is existing in this kind of post-Reagan era, and what that meant for her and her family. So just kind of talking about the significance of that history. And as Gen Xers, especially if you're queer and Black, how is it helpful to kind of think about what we think of as authority, how we can authorize our own lives, what, as Audre Lorde would say, what are the poetics of the erotic and stuff like that. So that what I could get help from that is just people expressing interest in learning more about this particular world, potato chips and wine, and that how to better educate oneself if they're not if they're not well versed in understanding, if they're not someone who identifies as queer, what life might be like for someone who is young, navigating life as Black, a girl, and lesbian, who's part of the LGBTQ community, whether it's the era in the mid 90s where she's trying to deal with don't ask, don't tell, anti-Black racism, or dealing with 2026, where we still have marginalized LGBTQ youth who are Black and brown, especially here in the East Bay. There's a lot of support in the Oakland area, not so much in San Francisco, but I think these type of books are really helpful to have cross-generational conversations where, this character is taking place in 1996, but it can easily be 2026 with the things that she's dealing with. Different technology, right? She's dealing with a payphone, VHS tapes, but still the same struggles. And then lastly, which I'm really excited about, I started Dragonfire Wellness, which is it's a collaborative hormonal health across the lifespan, focusing mostly on perimenopause and menopause. There is So 1 out of 8 people on the planet are going through menopause, and I love exploring this through the literary arts. And so far,
I'm there. We need to bring it back.
Menopause remedies assume that everyone is white, cisgender woman who is middle class, and that's the solutions to whatever you're going through related to menopause you can just buy it, right? And then I created a book called The Dragon Comes at Night, where a Black mom going through perimenopause, her hot flashes bring on dragons at night. And yes, she's vegan. Her family's vegan. So that book comes out next year too. And I'm just looking for people who are interested in learning more about and talking about and bringing to the light that perimenopause symptoms are the most severe amongst Black women of all the demographics.
Yes.
And there's a
Yes.
reason for that, because it's not just that our estrogen drops, but we're this ecosystem that's not just impacted by our hormones, but a lot of what we go through is exacerbated when our estrogen drops because of the stresses we go through. So sexism, racism, ageism, a lot of us dealing with a class struggle that adds to whatever we're already going through, if we're already going through perimenopause. And that's not spoken about in the mainstream rhetoric or ads that one sees about perimenopause and menopause. And then a lot of the supplements or foods that are often advocated to mitigate these are not plant-based. They're not vegan. So with this book, I'm excited that I couldn't find any other books that do this, where the heroine is going through menopause, and it's a midlife catharsis, not a midlife crisis. But I also, the book is fun, but also serious at the same time, where she doesn't realize she's having hot flashes because she has colonized her gut microbiome by eating all of this refined sugar and not realizing that a lot of our hormonal health is tied into our gut microbiome. But because of the industrialized food system and the way our palates have been colonized, a lot of us don't even realize that a lot of this, if you were born with ovaries, you will go through menopause, or already have, that she doesn't realize that there's alternatives, right? So there's parts in this book where I describe how there's these voices talking to her, like she's these cravings of sugar, and there's this kind of this internal battle. And I'm kind of hinting that this is one of the reasons why she may be having hot flashes. This is one of the reasons why that dragons may be coming at night. These special dragons are trying to tell her and to remind her of her ancestral lineage, of what these women did before an industrialized food system. That we were into that we understood fermentation, we understood the microbiome, we understood the foods and herbs that can help us balance that. So her particular, she learns she's part of this particular tribe that has been in hiding, that when they go through perimenopause, that they have a connection to dragons. And the way that you can control fire and the dragons is that you have to understand how to balance your microbiome through ancestral foods, and then also particular exercises, to kind of restore your pelvic floor and pelvic health and all that stuff. So that's all clinical stuff, but then I put it into the form of Afro fantasy. And I'm looking to build a community of people that this book can start that conversation. But there are so many mostly Black identified women, but anyone can go through perimenopause if you were born with ovaries. So gender expansive acknowledgement, non-binary, transgender men also can also go through this. So I'm looking to build a community where we can talk about this beyond, hey, just take DHA or just go on HRT, but create this way where we can talk about what we're all going through, not punish anyone. Oh, you chose HRT and not herbalism, or you doing herbalism and not HRT, and just really talk about this as a community and what it means if it's impacting us as Black people, because of the reality of systemic racism. We don't have the access and the safety to nutrition that we need, to healthcare, to even our own ancestral practices, because a lot of the alternatives out there for dealing with hormonal health issues like perimenopause and menopause, it's either Ayurveda and Chinese herbalism, which is great. That's awesome. I never see in the mainstream, this is from West African tradition, and these are the herbs and foods that we use. And I don't see that. Like, where is that? I know it's there, but why isn't that as centered as Ayurveda and Chinese herbalism? Like, where are our modalities and stuff? So, and the reality is that a lot of us were cut off from that. That's what happens when you literally capture and enslave and ship a whole people across, this ocean to become enslaved, and tell them, no, you can't practice your spiritual practices, your this or that practices. Now, we never lost it completely. It's still there. And that's one of the things that this book kind of investigates, is the ways that we were able to try to assimilate while also carrying on those practices, whether they were spiritual or herbalism, that we're trying to balance our womb, and what we had to adapt. If we didn't have this thing that used to grow and that we used for monarchy through postmenopause in what's now called Ghana, then what did we figure out in Americas that we could use that's still in honor of that other herb that we now can know that can balance us? Does that make sense? So that's I want our communities to kind of talk about that we aren't disempowered, that how can we make choices in spite of, and have choices in spite of, if we come together and talk about what we're going through. Generation X in the United States, regardless of race and gender, if you were born with ovaries and you had someone in your family who's a baby boomer, most likely they did not know what they were going through. They didn't talk about it, or the practitioners of the time said, well, hey, you just have to suffer 7 years of hot flashes and sleeping till 3 a.m. and not being able to go back to sleep and all this stuff. And that's the thing. I think we need to talk and build community, take away the shame, but also take away the capitalistic solutions and go back to that ancestral intelligence as a way to build this future of hormonal health that has been disrupted for many of us. But that's a mirror of what capitalism and colonialism have disrupted over the last 500 years. So that's what I'm interested in, just gaining that, finding community amongst those 3 books I've written, what those conversations lead to, and what I'm trying to create with those as platforms for discussion. And they're all Black vegan protagonists.
I love it. I love it, folks. I have shared the website in the comments. I'm also putting it up for you to see again, because I felt the breeze definitely on this. And I wish I was connecting with you. Yeah, the book, the dragon book, definitely, because I already been through the perimenopause. Now I'm in the menopause. But like you said, no one could tell me or explain anything at the time. So it's kind of like I'm talking to people, they don't even know what's going on. So very, very important. And then yes, your potato chip and wine, absolutely. How can people best connect with you? Is it on the website drbreezeharper.com? Is that the best way?
Yeah.
Or is there any other way they can connect? And how do we get those earrings?
Oh gosh, yeah, these are homemade. I know. I make them out of my Cricut maker. I know it takes, each one is a work of art. I mean, it takes so long for me to do each piece. And one day I will have them featured as a gallery of my work, and for people to purchase if they want to support the project. Because I work for myself. I'm a person who basically makes a living by working for herself and trying to be creative and liberatory in a climate that doesn't necessarily monetarily compensate me enough for that. So I'm trying to make my, create joy and still pay the bills. And this is kind of one way. So at the bottom of my website, there's a contact form. Hopefully it works, but that's how you can contact me. You can also follow me. Yeah. So it's drbreezeharper.com. And then I'm also on Instagram. The handle is Sistah, Sistah Vegan for Instagram. And everything's at the bottom. You can follow me on social media. And I have a Dr. Breeze Harper Instagram. So everything is at the bottom of there to follow me. And then you can click there for upcoming events. I'm going to be at the AVA Summit in Canada as a fireside a moderator. I'm doing a fireside chat with Avu Lay on Sunday, May 24th. That's going to be awesome. So I'll be there, and then I'll also be giving a panel the day before where we're talking about this concept of how we can, build bridges between movements. Though I actually am going to problematize the word bridge because I won't give away too much, but I have the issue with bridge building, the mainstream's concept, how do we get them build a bridge so they can join us versus how are we going to be in solidarity with the most marginalized, and then maybe we can go from there. So we'll be talking about that. And I just have other events coming up that I'll let you know. If you just go to my website and click on there, you'll just see what's going on.
I love it. Absolutely. I got to give you another round of applause. Thank you for taking the time out. This definitely was an honor to have you on. Mother's Day special edition tribute featuring Dr. Breeze Harper. Folks, go to drbreezeharper.com. Support. Follow, share out everything. Hey, you're tuning in to Naijha Speaks. Thank you for tuning in. It is very important. Naijha Speaks is a project of Black Veg Society. Please subscribe to the channel at naijaspeaks.com and donate. Donate at Black Veg. Forget donate. Give a love offering, an offering of love. Let's use that terminology. Give a love offering at blackvegsociety.org. It's tax deductible. And follow me at Naijha Speaks so that I can continue bringing on and supporting beautiful spirits like Dr. Breeze Harper. It is such a pleasure. On that note, that's all I have, unless you have something else to add.
I could talk forever, but I won't. But yeah, just thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and if you haven't checked out the book, people, check out the book. See if your library has it. If not, ask to order it. Sistah Vegan, and then there's Brother Vegan, which is the second volume.
Oh, yeah, I got the brother. You shouldn't even have said that. You shouldn't even said that, Dr. Bree. Because now did you say I got it? So my peeps, Wale. I got it, Brother Vegan. But as a matter of fact, I have rebroadcasted his interview on the last segment. Until we meet face to face or in spirit again, please be well. Stay joyful and let's stay connected. All right. It was definitely a pleasure. Have a blessed one.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Meeting you where you are. The meaning behind the slogan is that we meet the community where they are on their journey towards holistic health, a plant-based lifestyle, and veganism, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. We do this through people, food, events, and culture. Our 6 pillars are earth, eating, education, empowerment, enlightenment, and events. We are Black Veg Society.